hold on this computer. Nice. Good evening, everyone. I am excited to have Sheila Boyette here from Ecumen. She's a care consultant with them and is going to share with us about navigating grief through the holidays. So thanks for being here tonight, Sheila, and we're super glad to have you.
Thank you. So I hope first off that everyone is warm and cozy, and I am a care consultant for Ecumen Hospice. We do provide hospice services in the area. I just wanted to share with you about grief and the holidays. It can be challenging, and it's just a topic that is near and dear to my heart. So I wanted to share it with all of you. Just a little bit about hospice because there's a lot of misunderstanding about it. A little bit about hospice, and then we'll get into grief and the holidays. Hospice does not mean the end, not an immediate end. And it's not to limit the person, but to enhance their life. The focus is comfort and increasing the quality of life when a person is no longer pursuing a cure or treatment. So we want to keep them comfortable. Lastly, I just want to mention in this little summary of hospice that research shows bringing on hospice may increase life expectancy by 3 months. But the average stay on hospice varies. We do have people on hospice for well over a year. We do have people that graduate off of hospice. So it varies, and it's a good amount of support for the patient and their family members or loved ones. So we look at the whole entire family. So that's a little bit about hospice. Today I'm going to talk with you about grief and the holidays. Just so you know, bereavement support through Ecumen Hospice is available. I can get you directed to that. I can provide flyers at the library in case anyone is interested in reaching out to our bereavement specialist. Birdie is her name, and she's wonderful. What Birdie will do is facilitate healthy grieving, prevent grief-related health and mental health issues, problems that come up. The way that she does this is through support and memorializing a loved one, education, connecting with resources, and grief counseling. So a little side note of something that I want to mention when I'm covering this topic of grief in the holidays is that spirituality can be a very important part of grieving and a part of many of our lives. But spirituality is so different for each person with the traditions, customs, and interpretation of that higher being. So I won't be really touching on spirituality component, but I have great respect for it. But I just want to address that because the fact that I'm not touching on it doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. It's very valid, and you know your connections that you have spiritually. So utilize your resources. Any questions so far from anyone before we get started? No? Okay.
Thanks.
You're welcome. Okay, so in this discussion, we're going to be talking about grief and entering this space of grief. I just want us to pause because we will be honoring our loved ones. And we'll be talking about grief and learning and exploring grief, and that is sacred. So I just want to take
There you go.
Okay, so continuing on, grief, we'll start talking about grief. Grief is love. And I also want to mention grief is relative, as in the grief and the loss can be from long ago or it can be recent. And this discussion of grief applies to any loss that's significant to you. So we'll cover grief, grieving, and then we'll move on to the holidays. So it'll be helpful to understand a bit about grief and a bit about grieving to make better sense of why and how it feels as it does. So we grieve because we love. And we often hear our grief is an expression of our love for that person. And love is a main component of grief. And through our lives, we've created an attachment or bonds to special people. And in grief, that bond and attachment is with the person who has died. And forming that attachment and bond with our special person, it changes us. Our hearts and our brains change physiologically as we express and feel the love shared. So when we have that love or a bond shared with our special person, be it a partner, a wife, husband, friend, sister, child, interacting with that person, there are all sorts of internal, inside of you, interactions that are happening. So the best way to give an example of this is you see your loved one and there's a certain feeling, like an ah feeling, or soothing a baby, and the baby is crying and the baby stops crying and there's an awe feeling. It's soothing, the baby smiles at you, and you feel that when the baby smiles at you or your loved one smiles at you, and you respond. So that bond is strong, and that's that awe feeling, and that's internal and inside of you, that response that comes out externally, expressed in love. So in loving that special person, this continues to happen throughout your relationship in different ways and to different extents. And when that person dies, you're yearning for that awe feeling, that soothing feeling. And this is grief because the love remains. Any questions with that? Okay. So when people have died, that people that we love, we grieve. And news research is showing that we are beginning to understand that grieving is learning. So think about when you've had to learn a new skill, if you were an athlete or baking a new recipe. To learn takes time. So you're learning that new skill. You're attempting that new recipe, and it takes practice. And it isn't just easily accomplished on that very first time. It takes time and learning because you're learning a new skill. So grieving is learning. Grieving is learning to live in the world with the absence of someone you love deeply, who is ingrained in your understanding of the world. And this is the way of grief. You're learning what life is like without that special person who you love who has died. You and that special person, you made meaning in this world. and you had a role and a purpose in that relationship. Maybe you were a partner, maybe a best friend, maybe you were a mother, maybe a father, maybe a mentor, maybe a coach, but there was a role or a purpose in that relationship. And also losing that role and purpose is also hard because maybe it defined a part of you. And it's hard losing that. And what does that mean now? That's the grieving process. So how do we learn to be in this world without the person that we hold dearly? So learning to live without the loved one. That's the challenge. So time, traditions, and special memories. So one of the largest ways we learn is through time. And we need to live experiences over and over to learn that our loved one is no longer here. And that is hard. But your brain hasn't caught up to the world around you, your reality, without this loved one. So you need to have more experiences and practice in living in the world without that loved one. And like I said, this is hard, but this is grieving. And it's day after day. So for example, a mother and son went to get the mail together every day. They walked to the mailbox. And initially, losing his mother, the son really struggled to take that walk to the mailbox. And after a few days, there was a little change, incredibly hard and challenging, but kept doing, walking to that mailbox alone. After weeks, it becomes a little lighter. This can be the same in eating meals alone or without that person. Or at the end of the day, when it is quiet, it can be hard to relearn how to live during that quiet end of the day time without that loved one. Which also brings us to holidays. Learning the holidays without that person that you deeply love, that takes learning as well. Just know this is exhausting work that's emotional, it's physical, and you are looking to make meaning in the midst of a lot of change. Okay. So now let's talk about the holidays. We'll shift to the holidays, and then we'll come back to talking about grief and the holidays. So just in general, what do you cherish about the holidays? Just some thoughts. Start thinking the holidays and what's meaningful to you. What stands out? What do you look forward to? Gather your thoughts. So here you'll see maybe some pictures that maybe spark a response in you. Were any of these in your thoughts? The music of the season around the holidays. That can be very special and tied with memories. The food of the season. Those special dishes or traditions related with food. That can be an important part that is cherished during the holidays. Winter activities, The activities that you do, be it ice skating, sledding, maybe football games to watch on TV. The coziness, there's a coziness to the holidays, maybe hot cocoa, getting together with people. And that feeling of love or hope in the air, that can be a memory of what is cherished during the holidays. And the candle kind of symbolizing that spiritual element or that quietness and reflection that the season brings. So the holidays are ever changing. They might seem like they're unchanging with your traditions and customs, but there are elements that create traditions, and some stay the same, and some might be changing throughout the years. And this is the key to remember. This time of grief is also a change. So let's think about the holidays for a moment. When you think about the holidays in the past, what brought you joy and holiday spirit? And what do you remember about the holidays from your childhood? Okay. And what holiday traditions did you have during childhood versus later in life? When you think of those from your childhood or holidays of the past, there have been changes. Some things stay the same, but some things change. And this is the key. Okay. So, tying together grief, grieving, and the holidays. Grief needs a dedicated time, be it going to the grave site before family gathers, setting time aside in the morning or afternoon to just celebrate that person. Honoring your loved one is so very important, and it doesn't need to feel large with a lot of fanfare or overwhelming. You just find what works for you. Lighting a candle, playing a certain holiday song, baking a certain food. That's most important. My husband's first wife passed away, and the kids were very, very young. The youngest was 3 years old. And to this day, he still makes this very elaborate pumpkin pie. It involves gelatin, it involves cream, it involves constant stirring, it involves cooling down and putting things in the freezer for a set amount of time, all to make this pie happen. And he makes these pies, multiple pies every year. This man otherwise does not cook or bake, but I know he's honoring his wife and the kid's mother, and this is near and dear to him. And the pie is delicious, I must say. I'm just mentioning this as an example, a beautiful example. And you know what's meaningful between you and your loved one. It's also important because we tend to be in our society grief illiterate and not good in talking about grief. People get a little stressed or worried about death and loss. They're afraid to bring it up. Open up the conversation. Make it okay to talk about the loved one. Okay. Lead with a story, maybe a funny holiday memory. but say their name, keep their legacy and their memories alive. In that, if it happens to be the first year without your loved one, plan how you want to honor or bring that person who has died into the holiday. Start the tradition, the rhythm of it for the holiday and the holidays to come. Having a conversation with the people that you trust and you want to include in this, having the conversation ahead of time kind of starts that creative space and how to honor that loved one that is passed. Think about also what parts of the holiday you enjoyed with this person, what you want to keep, what you want to change, what you want to add. So it's honoring, but there is change to it, but it's beautiful change. That legacy and memory building is so very important. If there's something that someone does that reminds you of your loved one, share that. For example, if there's a particular cookie and it reminds you of your mother's cookies, share that. People have a desire to connect. And if I heard, like recently, I made a dish of beans with all the good flavors, and it reminded a dear friend of his mother that he lost. And so I shared that recipe with him and his wife so that they could always have his mother's beans whenever, he wanted to just honor her and feel that closeness. So it's important to carry on that person's legacy. And that would involve change. So be open to new experiences. The experiences are going to assist you in staying connected. The expressions of love you share are going to be honoring that person who has died. So it is a good thing. Remember to be gentle and kind to yourself. Here's where I'm just going to give some pointers, shall we say. Be gentle and kind to yourself, no matter how long ago the loss. Say no if there's too much going on, or if you need an exit plan. Like, sure, I'll stop by for a visit during your holiday gathering, but I may need to leave early. That sets you up like, I can commit to this. It may be limited. Ask for help. And this is very challenging for people, but ask for help because people love to help. Be specific in your request, but give them that opportunity. I know it makes me feel good when I can help someone. I imagine it makes you feel good. Give others the opportunity to help. Know your emotions, all of them. Sad, anger, teary, frustration, loneliness, and just know all of those feelings are absolutely acceptable. There is no right or wrong way to grieve. But know that those emotions might be closer to the surface, especially around the holidays, and they might be quick to come forward. And it is okay. If you need to say, I'm grieving. If you need to say, sometimes my feelings are a little overwhelming at times. People are going to give you grace. When needed, just pause and take a deep breath. Sometimes the need for that deep breath might take you by a complete surprise. Like, I thought I was doing okay, and then I saw this, or I smelled this smell, or whatever it might be. Just pause and take a break when needed. And it might be challenging, but send love to others and to yourself. Be kind and gentle to yourself. Lastly, know it will be hard. You are going to miss your special person. That's because they were so meaningful to you. You may be sad or lonely, but know and believe that you will be okay. So, lastly, wrapping this up, create new traditions that bring joy. Research is showing that joy is so very, very valuable when grieving. People who experience joy have what we call an upward spiral of emotions. This allows people, be it just a short moment of joy or an extended length of time of a joyful experience, it allows people to be more creative about their grief. When they say creative about their grief, it means creating more tools and coping strategies in their grief toolbox to handle grief. Your loved one would want you to be happy and to find joy. So this holiday season, think about bringing a bit of joy in. It doesn't have to be huge or overwhelming. It can be a holiday movie, craft a gift for someone, call someone and wish them a happy holiday, or send a card. But it is key that when you feel joy, it can be something simple and just makes you smile. Please pause and take it in. Embrace the feeling. It is part of healing. And if by chance you giggle or laugh this holiday season, pause and be aware how good it feels. So joy is so incredibly helpful in this grieving process. And with that, sending you tender care this holiday season, and may you give and receive joy. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheila. That was really lovely. So, important conversation around a difficult topic. A question I have is, do you have any specific thoughts for helping a parent who might have lost their loved one and help their child navigate that as well?
Right, because it's kind of switching the role where the child is feeling the lead. And one thing to keep in mind is, how do they want to grieve? And there is no right or wrong for grieving, but we want people to be healthy and feel supported through their grief. And maybe having that challenging conversation of, what memories do you have of mom or dad? And what are the special holiday memories that you have? And maybe something will come through. Maybe it was hot cocoa in a certain mug. Maybe it was going for a drive and looking at Christmas lights. And then asking, would it be okay? Can we, incorporate some of that? Maybe just a little piece at a time. Just depends on that person's willingness, and encouraging them to be brave, because it is hard work. So that would be a good start, is opening that conversation and then allowing some new traditions or building on some of the traditions. Like, oh, Dad always liked to volunteer at this place during the holidays. Should we go and fill in his spot? You know, but be patient and allow grace if it's hard for that person to do it the first time around. Remember, this is a new skill. They're learning. It has to be practiced over and over. Yeah.
And I know you said this a little bit about this at the beginning about resources, but now that we're circled kind of back to the end, could you point people to some good resources, again, just fresh in their mind if they are looking for help navigating their grief in the holidays?
Yes. So I will have some helpful tips in managing the holiday season. I'll send that and provide that to you digitally, but then I'll
Great.
also have paper flyers of it for you to have in the
Cool.
library. Well, yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. And are there, this sounds maybe sounds funny, but like, are there any like apps out there that help people who like maybe can do that, like use that as like a touch point that might, well, the
Yeah.
apps might be the wrong thing, but you know, that
No,
kind
no,
of,
no. So I think a fantastic resource would be reaching out to our bereavement specialist,
great.
Birdie, and her phone number. And she does want me to give out this phone number, but her phone number is, now that I say that, where is her phone number? Is 651 760 3533. And Birdie would be available for like one-on-one sessions, like 1 or 2 sessions. And then she would be inquiring and helping to understand the situation so that the appropriate resources would be, yeah, beneficial. I find up in this area, like grief support groups are few and far between, unfortunately. So I wish that there was more locally that and up the shore that was available, but even in Duluth, it's rare. Yeah. Yeah.
No, thank you.
But
That's super helpful.
definitely, yes, definitely feel free to reach out to Birdie. Yeah.
Thank you, Sheila, so much for taking some of this evening right before Christmas to share with us. And that this was really wonderful. So thank you so much.